one sentence or less. What is less than one sentence? What's the status of Printrbot?
Printrbot is now closed, bankrupt.
For those that are not intimately familiar with Printrbot, how did it all start and how did we get here?
Printrbot started from a Kickstarter that was kind of a surprise for me. I was an enthusiast in my garage, and I just wanted to do something that was more interesting than web design. So ended up doing a Kickstarter, first a meetup group and then a Kickstarter. And I was going to build 50 right here. Probably take me 3 months, I thought. But we got 1,200 orders. Or 1,100, 1,200. So totally took me by storm, raised $830,000, and boom, I had a new career. So I haven't done, I'd never done this before. And truly didn't know what I was doing, but learned the ropes pretty quickly. Exhausting, but it's been six and a half years since then.
And what happened that we're where we're at now?
So when we started, we had the first year, going from 0 to about 2 million in sales the first year. Then the second year, it was like, 7 million? The third year or fourth year, 12 million. So, it grew so fast and we grew with it. And so I ended up trying to make as much as I could in my own shop. And we bought a pick and place machine. We bought a whole pick and place line, very expensive. Really, I had no business buying that. Carl Ubis tells me that constantly. He's like, you should have asked me, one of my vendors. But not just that, but like Haas Mills, Waterjet, like all kinds of stuff. A lot of employees, lots of square footage in the shop. So really, we ramped up so we could handle that big year in sales. And we had all this overhead, and then sales started to drop. So I did, that's my decision. That's on me. So, looking back, I don't blame just the market or just this or just that. I just blame me. Call it inexperience or bad decisions or circumstance with my decisions in the market or whatever. But when you're the CEO, you got to take ownership. So what happened was me making some decisions that had big loans, big payments, big overhead, and eventually, other factors are definitely like cheap printers came in from overseas. People kind of lost the love for 3D printing over the years, as far as like, everybody clamored to get one. And I was one of those that won big during that time. But that time, whether it was a saturation in the market, whether it was confusion in the market, whether it was these 3D printers, they're hard to use for a newbie. So there was a little bit of like, oh man, these are harder to use. Or they bought a cheap one and it was like, well, this isn't as good as I thought it would be. So I think a variety of factors, but really you got to point to me that I made some decisions that really, long term after the sales drop below a certain point, you can't survive.
And to kind of extend on that, and I know this next question is kind of politically loaded, and I'd rather not step into that hornet's nest on the channel here, but you were always a believer in manufacturing things locally, and for Printrbot, that was manufacturing stuff in the USA, which is kind of ironic with me sitting here with my Huawei laptop, Chinese brand, Chinese made and everything. But given that customers and consumers are already widely buying like the cheaper imports goods, do you think that manufactured goods like 3D printers even have a future if they're made locally, or does it even make sense to work that way?
So there is a bit of there's like two voices happening in not just America, but maybe worldwide or two forces that fight against each other in the maker community, because we're craftsmen that love to build things ourselves, right? So that means right here in this garage, I built the first ones in here. But when you build a whole bunch of them, there's a certain scale that you reach that you can't build them in here anymore. Now I talked to a 3D printer CEO yesterday in America, and he did what I did. He went to local manufacturing, went to a machine shop locally, bought equipment for his own shop. And I was like, wow, that's what I did. So why did I fail and you succeed? And he said, well, the maker market, I just left the maker market as soon as I could. You know, it was like 2012 or so. And I went high end. So his machines are like thousands. Mine were hundreds. And so I think I made two mistakes, or at least to try to stay in this maker market. I tried to stay in the maker market. I tried to do low price printers, at least high value, you know, modest price printers. I did make a $300, but it was like wood and like very, it had like fishing line, you know, for the belts. But that was like an experiment in low price, and I didn't want to do that. So we ended up making in metal. So to make in metal, powder coated, CNC, laser cut, I mean, the highest, quality of machining on our machine parts, you can't do that inexpensively. So I think I had this idea of, I want to have a cheap printer, but I was making a high cost printer because I was making locally and making it in all these materials. You know, if you look at the low cost printers that come overseas, they're low quality. I mean, they're not great. You know, and some of the ways that, now they can do things that I can do, like folded metal, powder coated folded metal. They don't have all the EPA stuff over there. They pay somebody $2 an hour. You know, I paid them 20. So, you know, it's just very different. So I think I was a little bit too idealistic in that I want both high quality, low price. That doesn't work. That doesn't work, period, really. But also, you know, I'm an American. I love America. You know, we won't get into it, but I believe that we should be America first. You know, I'm not a globalist or whatever, but the point is, you know, take care of your family first. That's what I do. Take care of your family first, and then feed others or whatever. So I believe in manufacturing in the U.S. I took shop class. I learned how to, you know, work a lathe. I first got interested in CNC in high school. So those were guys around me doing this, you know, on their farms. And these guys were making livings right out of high school, machining things and working in factories and stuff. And that was a beautiful thing to me. So we say, you know, I say, make in America, make locally. That's like, it's a feel good thing. But then the makers go out and buy Chinese printers. Like, I don't understand that at all. Now, I get it. Everybody kind of falls back to, and I'm not really angry about this. I'm confused. And I think just people, it's not that you should only buy locally. It's that, be honest with yourself. You might actually have the money to buy a, you know, $700 printer locally instead of a $400 printer from, you know, China or whatever. So I think some people are just lying to themselves, or at least kidding themselves, that I can't afford. Well, I would buy from you, Brooke, but I really can't afford to buy from you. I don't buy that. I think people are making a choice, and it's just not important to them, and they should say it. So this feel good, like, make in America, like, buy locally. Do you really believe that? Look around your house. How much of that stuff in there is bought locally, and how much was bought on Amazon.com? Like, really? So I just think we've got this, want to be, it's not really political as much as it is like, I want people to believe I buy into the values of made locally, even though I don't really do it. You know what I mean? So I think we should stop talking. If you're not buying locally, stop acting like you buy locally. You buy you buy cheap stuff on Amazon.com. So, and Amazon is a, love-hate. I love getting things easily like that, and I buy off Amazon. But they flooded their, 3D printer world with a bunch of Chinese stuff that, and the system can be gamed on the ratings and stuff. So it was a disservice to 3D printing to have Amazon and all these printers come in. I mean, it just confused people. And so there was it was sort of a, what do they call it? A comedy of errors. But again, I should have figured all this out and made my own decisions and, either raise the price or there was things I could have done. Hindsight's 2020. Oh, sorry about that. Hindsight's 2020. But it's the CEO's fault in the end.
Okay, so let's kind of loop around to the Printrbot core products, I guess. And one of your latest ones was the Printrbot Simple Pro, a cloud-based printer. Since Printrbot.cloud is now offline, what is going to happen to the machine? Some people are commenting that they can't use it anymore.
Right. So, okay. So the last model that we made was the Simple Pro. And in a lot of ways, that was the dream it represented the dream that I really felt like I should do. And somebody's got to do this. Somebody's got to make 3D printing easier. Somebody's got to make a beautiful machine that is easy to use. Mine happened to be portable. I don't know that that was a big aspect of it or not, but that thing was beautiful. It printed unbelievably well. It was very consistent. But I made some mistakes. To make it easy to use, I chose the cloud. Now, by the way, this is another problem with me. I have, high quality printers in a low cost brand. So it was like, people are like, it's too much. You've abandoned us. Why didn't you make a cheaper printer? You're getting greedy. No, it wasn't that. I was making better stuff, more complicated stuff on the inside to keep it simple on the outside. I spent a lot of money in development, and, to make that cloud, to make that touchscreen work with, very little, CPU, like power on the inside. I did a lot with a little. But that takes time, that takes development. So, I made some strange decisions in that whole thing. But I will say that it worked really, really well. Now, I know you reviewed it. You didn't like it, if I remember. I think part of your problem was, what are you doing here, Brooke? And it's not quite finished. All fair, critiques. But it represented the dream, like, okay, so let's fix all of these problems with the cloud. Really, what I should have done is not have it be cloud-centered. But I didn't have the money to make a computer inside that machine to do all of that stuff, in there. Originally, I was thinking Octoprint. Gina, I love Gina and Octoprint, but I wanted to dictate the UI. That actually is hard with Octoprint to totally change that experience. Now, we did start late in the game. A buddy of mine and a wonderful developer, Kelly. We had a proof of concept that really we should have done from the beginning. Make Octoprint that thing that was the cloud, and we got Kira 3 to run in it. The UI to be mocked up. It's there on GitHub, but the dream was to have this easy interface with thumbnails on a touchscreen representing the STL models. Because I hate those, the Prusa LCD. It's not really the Prusa, but the old, the LCD thing. I just hate that. I hate it. And, the Prusa printer is fantastic if you get it from Joseph. It is a fabulous machine. I just happen to hate the way it looks. I hate it, the way it looks. I love the way it prints, but that will never be a consumer device. I don't care what you or anybody else says. It's not a consumer device. And so you got to be clear with your goal. I wanted to make a consumer 3D printer, not because I wanted to take the fun out of it, because 3D printing is never going to spread to the rest of the world unless it is easy to use, beautiful, just like a no-nonsense experience. Like, I was born in the 80s. Born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s. So the microwave oven was like a big day for us. The oven was a hard thing to do for me. I didn't know it. Don't touch that. I don't know what's going on. I could go up to that microwave oven every time, turn that dial. All I did was turn the dial. It was like an egg timer, And I was cooking stuff. Like, I didn't have to know anything. I just, open the door, stick your hand in the water. Not hot yet. Not go in there. So, this is not going to be a microwave oven device or something that's really a no-brainer for people to use unless somebody steps out and makes something that's both appealing visually, considers the whole UX. Do we really need, Simplify 3D or Complify 3D to have a good print? Do you really have to get in there and tweak like slicer settings and like move things around? That's so hard to do. Now, for the power user, it's perfect. Beautiful product, Simplify 3D. But that's not what newbies are going to use in these future microwave oven, easy 3D printers. So anyway, I was trying to push that. And that was the goal. But it landed in, the reality was that my audience was makers, primarily. And I give them this wannabe consumer device. I was shooting for perfection, fell short, but it was intriguing. and pretty good.
So what's going to happen to the Printrbot cloud now?
Yeah.
But yeah, some people are commenting that they can't use the Simple Pros anymore because the Printrbot.cloud website is down.
Right. So when I had to file bankruptcy, it's a really simple equation. Here's how much I have in the bank. Here's what I owe, and that doesn't match up. So what do? The real tragedy of this is the biggest mistake I made was I personally guaranteed some of these loans, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands. So I'm looking at a possibility of the bank suing me and myself going personally bankrupt, losing my house, losing all the money, everything. So I had to make some very hard decisions, and one of those was I had to shut down everything immediately because I realized, this is my family now. This is everything I've worked for 47 years. I can't worry about the fact that some customers are going to be very unhappy. So I shut it all down quick. I mean, you probably saw it. I shut it down very, very quickly. It was hundreds of dollars a month. Like, I forget how much it was, but it was hundreds of dollars a month to keep that thing alive. And now it's coming out of my pocket. They seize your bank account when you file bankruptcy. So I didn't have access. There was actually money in the bank at Printrbot. And in fact, I had never missed a payment to anyone. My vendors were paid. The thing I couldn't do with these big old bank loans. So everybody got paid. If I had an order in the shop that I hadn't yet shipped, I refunded all their money. I didn't screw anybody in this. I'm the one that got screwed, except myself. So I didn't have money. I couldn't access and everyth's really tied to it's so hard to untangle a complicated business that's been in business for 7 years, man. So I made another big mistake. I was just trying to keep it alive as long as I could. So I did put that server on my personal credit card in the last couple months because Chase canceled my credit card that was paying for the servers. So I paid for it out of my own pocket with my own credit card for a while, and that was hundreds, and then it turned into thousands of dollars. Now I've got $25,000 in debt that I'll never get back. So I mean, it's just understand. I understand that it all happened very quickly, but there's a backstory. I with all of the mistakes I made, I tried to do my best and end it in a way that I had integrity and I could sleep at night. But there were some very real realities, and still continue to be. The bankruptcy thing isn't over. I don't know if I'm going to get sued. I don't know if I'm going to go bankrupt. I have very little money, a couple of months runway for personally until I got to do something drastic. And the business, I haven't had access to that in a long time, but there's still a little money in Printrbot, oddly. I don't know what Chase is doing. But anyway, so here's the deal with the Simple Pro. It always worked with USB. So there's a tiny G board in there. And the only thing you have to do is there's one jumper that you have to put in. And these instructions have been on Carl Ubis's ubishotends.com. It's also on my GitHub. So this stuff is like people say, you took it all off. No, I didn't. It's been there, and on his website you can get to right at the bottom of the front page. It says, here's how to print USB with the Simple Pro, and it goes through the guide of how to print with USB. So you probably know more than most about this board. So it does operate like Marlin, even though it is not Marlin. So you can hook it up to any host. You can't use it with Simplify 3D, but you can with the other common ones. You can use it with Octoprint, and there's even very detailed instructions on the settings in specifically Octoprint. So I recommend people buy a Raspberry Pi, hook the Simple Pro up to Octoprint, and now you've got an Ethernet plug. You've got Wi-Fi if you want it. It's up to you what you do with Octoprint, but it'll print. It'll print. It always did. That screen is useless now, but you could leave it on there. Now, you don't have to do a jumper if you don't take the screen off. That I jumped ahead of myself. If you want to take the screen off and replace that with something else, I've had people replace them with Raspberry Pis with screens. But if you want to just leave it the way it is, you can do the leveling. You can move it up and down the Z. There's some menus in there that are useful. You don't have to use it on Wi-Fi. you know. But anyway, so yeah, I get it. They bought it to be one thing, and I'm very sorry about that, but it is still a 3D printer that works. So I don't feel that bad.
Yeah, I guess that's the important thing, that there is that backup solution for USB, and I mean the core functionality is still there.
Yeah.
So that's good. Tacking on to that topic, since I've got these questions written out. Since you now have basically nothing to lose, are you just going to open source all of your designs, software, the Printrbot cloud? Is that going to happen?
Well, sorry, hold on. It's weird that you would ask that. Am I going to open source everything? I've always given away all the designs that, but I will tell you, I wasn't very organized with it.
Yeah, that's what I realized. So I looked at GitHub and at those places, and it was like, yeah, a few printers are on there, but not everything.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that would be really fun. And if people, what I need are volunteers to take this huge pile of designs. And if you have interest in one, like clean it up, man. Because I don't know, if you're designing, I can imagine how you design in Fusion 360. I bet that you have everything very orderly and it makes perfect sense. It's well labeled. It has notes or whatever. Mine's a hot mess when I first start, So going back further, the older designs are kind of a mess. The newer ones are like really clean. But yeah, absolutely. They were all intended to be open source and in people's hands from the beginning. And there are step files even of the Simple Pro already on like Imagine, and they're out there. Now that I say that, somebody's going to test me on it. But I know the step files were released.
Yeah, well, the Simple Pro is not on Imagine. I checked. A few other printers are, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere. It just needs to be findable, I guess.
Yeah. So here's the plan. I've got brookdrum.com. I'm building the website right now, and one of the first menu items is 3D printers. My designs. So I'm going to go through and start posting all of that with all the documentation. There is some documentation various places online, but yeah, I need a centralized place for everything I've done. And that'll act as my portfolio. Here's what I've done. Here's all of the plans and stuff. But I will say one thing, there was this one guy that I'm making some assumptions here, but in the past, people have, when I announced a printer early, which is not always a good idea. And I was like, the Printrbot's coming, When's it going to go? When? People got really like, I want it. And sometimes I found out that they wanted to beat me to my own market and sell it first. You know what I mean? So sometimes I get a little bit bent out of shape on people like, where are the plans? You said you were open source. Where are the plans? You're a liar, and really what they want to do is just sell the stuff and make money for themselves, So it's not always pure, the internet isn't full of just pristine as driven snow hearts. So I'm just like, what? I'll get it out when I can. So I'll just go slowly and release the printers that people want. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want to come over to my house right now, I'll send you away with a hard drive. You can have everything. You deal with it. Because there's a lot of stuff, man. It's a lot of stuff.
Sweet. Printrbot.cloud, is that also going to be released, the server-side software, so people could maybe emulate it or work on that?
Printrbot's GitHub. So the cloud was always open sourced. And from the very beginning, I was like, hey, we said we were going to do open source on this. How can we do this? So Mick went through and said, well, dude, here's all the relevant stuff. But I'm not going to open source. I can't open source. There's authentication keys and stuff. So this was on Amazon servers. It used off-the-shelf, stuff. And I even asked when Mick left and I got Ryan to take over, he was like, dude, this is all the relevant. Might have been Ryan that did it, but he goes, you can't share more than this. So that stuff is on GitHub. But I'm telling you, even if I gave you everything, it's not trivial to hook this thing up. It was a complicated thing. And it is tied directly to these printers. So you'd have to have all the keys to all the printers. It's complicated. Now, what really would be a dream is somebody takes that teensy touchscreen. So it's a touchscreen with like similar to the Adafruit touchscreen on that Simple Pro, and it has a Teensy on there. It has an ESP. I always forget. 8622, 8266.
8266, yeah.
Lixdexia. Anyway, that it would be awesome if somebody just freaking built a, something simpler that didn't need the cloud. I mean, that'd be awesome. But that also is very complicated. All that code is online and open sourced as well. So that's probably the shorter path. If there's programmers out there that would want to take our open source code, strip out all the cloud stuff, and just make it a dumb device that like streams from Cura or something, you know what I mean? Like that would be awesome. But I'm not a programmer, so can't help you there.
And to wrap things up here, we're on like 25 minutes, I think, of recording time. What is next for you personally? Where are you going? Can you just go back to your previous life?
Well, I don't want to go back to my previous life. I don't want to do web design. I don't want to be a pastor. I don't want to do IT work. I don't want to do those things. I love this community, and I love building 3D printers. So I am right now, Patreon is what I'm doing, patreon.com/brookdrum. So I'm making content. I was kind of a guy with a lot of projects anyway. Now it's time to like do a better job with them at a higher production value, which I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. I want to do these products. What I love is just that, and you probably experience this, when you can do something or produce some content and see it enjoyed by so many, and even teach people something or help them in some way. For me, that is a beautiful thing. So it's going to be content first and 3D printers on the side until I get done with all this legal mess and I can actually start a company again. My hands are tied for maybe up to 6 months, at least 2 months if it all goes well. If it goes horribly, 6 months or maybe more. So I don't have a lot of choices right now, but I can make a living, and I choose to do that through making some content right now.
Yeah. And where's that going to be published? Where can people find you?
So it's the same right now, for better or worse. It's YouTube at Printrbot, the same channel. So far, they haven't taken away my domain name. So, shh. So the company, the company name Printrbot is no longer protected by copyright. So, if somebody goes steal it. Anyway, but it's live. I still have Brooke at Printrbot.com. I forward to Carl's website. So all the printer stuff can be found at Carl's website for now, because I'm just doing contract labor for him. And we haven't yet produced any printers, but we're doing some accessories and hot ends, of course. But so I'll slowly get back into it, get my sourcing back, get product on the shelf through him, and just be paid as a contract labor. But later I hope to open another 3D printing business. It's just going to take a little bit of time. In the meantime, I'm going to have some fun making content. So eventually brookdrum.com will be up, but right now, Patreon. You can find me on the same Twitter channel at Printrbot, and the same YouTube channel, Google+. Same old places.
Cool. All the best for your future endeavors, and thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, Tom. You take care, man.